Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July 30th, 2024 School Board of Manatee County public hearing on the tentative budget and millage rates, as well as public hearing and approval of policies. I want to jump to the approval of the agenda. The chair has found good cause to amend the agenda to include all items listed under agenda amendments on the July 30th, 2024 agenda, updated on July 26th, 2024, and posted to the district website, manateeschools.net. A lot of the presentations and stuff weren't on originally, so we added those in there. So if I can get a motion to accept, or
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Seeing no board members that are up to speak, let's go ahead and vote on the approval of the agenda. And that passes 5-0. Moving along, item number 3 tonight is our presentations. First presentation is regarding the 2024-2025 tentative millage rate and budget. So Ms. Sellers, or Dr. Weisson, do you want to start with anything, or just jump right to Ms. Sellers?
I'll just give a thanks to Ms. Sellers and the entire budget team for getting us to this point where we're ready to look at the tentative budget. And again, we had 3 prior workshops on the budget, board members, so this is just the next step in the process. So thank you, Ms. Sellers.
Good morning, good evening, board members. The purpose of tonight is to adopt the tentative millage rates for the next school year, 2024-25, and then second, to adopt the tentative budget for next year as well. So after the tax collector notifies the taxpayers what the tax rate will be in the county on September 10, that's another board meeting. That's when we're going to adopt the final millage rates and budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. Before I forget, I also want to thank our budget team, and with us today is our budget director, Gina Malinak. And to continue on, we've got, there have been a variety of workshops, as Dr. Weisong had indicated, leading up to this, and we followed up also with the general fund revenues projected for the next fiscal year. They were incremental layers, in most instances discussing, comparing where we were in 24 versus where we're going to be in 25. On July 19, we did have DOE certified the adjusted RLE, which is now 3.051. We couldn't finalize our budget advertisement until we had this final RLE, and the advertisement notified the public of the hearing tonight. Oop, I should have already been here. This was the agenda. All right, so there are notification requirements that are identified in the state statutes that drives this presentation and the public hearing, including the truth and millage advertisement, or TRIM. This dictates the form, the size, the format, the placement, and the wording of the ads and the hearings for the millage rate and budget. This is for transparency to the taxpayers. The statutes require 2 public hearings within specified time frames or timelines. This district's advertisement ran this past Saturday, July 27. This was prescribed in the statute. And we are also required to discuss the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate and have separate votes on the millage rate and the budget, tentative budget. So tonight's hearing is regarding the tentative budget. The tentative budget books have been distributed to you. The 24-25 ending fund balance, the assigned reserve percentage is now expected to be at the end of the fiscal year, June 30, 2025, to be 7.43%. This was after the FEFP second calc. And you will find on page 21 in your books the general fund balance expected to be, projected to be 66 million. So after tonight, the information goes to the property appraiser and tax collector. The tax collector then prepares the proposed notice of proposed millages and then sends that out to the taxpayers.
I hate to interrupt, but
Yep.
may I have a copy of the slide deck? I didn't get one.
In this stuff right here, no.
No, I've got my budget book, but I don't have
Oh.
the slide deck. Yeah.
Here. She looks at it online.
All right, thank you. I have Gina's, so if you could give her back hers, that would be great.
So we're gonna hold questions after.
All right. Now, the final budget hearing, that's going to be on September 10. And again, we have to separately first vote for the millage rates and then the final budget. So this is a display of the millage rate trends. We've had this in a few of our other presentations. It goes back to our trends back to 2017-18 fiscal year. Okay, so what is a mill in Florida? A mill is $1 for every 1,000 in taxable value. So if we're levying 1 mill on a $100,000 home, the tax would be $100. So this hearing is going to be for an adoption of the millage rate of 6.299. This rate has been declining year after year over the last 8 years. The legislature released the first calc at the end of the session, and the dollars per student calculation by the legislature assumes that the district will levy this millage rate. Now, another thing to note, I'll highlight the discretionary 0.748 mil. That even though they call it discretionary, if it is not levied, the district students are at a disadvantage because we would not be getting that revenue. However, the district would still be liable for the charter school's proportionate share of this 0.748 millage. So just a reminder of that, because everybody sees discretionary and thinks, well, maybe we don't have to do that one. So. And feel free to ask any questions as I go through some of these slides.
Well, I'll have to back up because I have a few. Go ahead.
Can we keep going? Okay. All right, so as requested, this presentation demonstrates the state FEFP funding which we receive from DOE. It has gradually been decreasing over the last 5 years. And in return, our we see this decrease because our local effort has been value has been increasing. So we saw an increase in the tax assessed and collected as the millage rate has decreased, and we have added a green line here to at least show you where the actual collections of the required local effort plus that discretionary 0.748 millage is in relation to the projected, or DOE's projected funding for RLE.
This is great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so on to the current millage rates with the taxes to be raised. This is presented in 2 columns. There are 2 different parts in the advertisement where the district is required to show the collections at 96% and then at 100%. So we display both of those here. Now the district has an increase in the property tax taxable value, and we will collect more in taxes even with the reduction in the millage rate this year. I know we've mentioned this before, but I just want to point that out again. Now the rollback rate, this looks at the change in the assessed property value and attempts to explain the impact in taxes if the assessed values had not changed. So the 24-25 total millage rate to be levied actually exceeds the rollback rate by 2.77%. Now, this slide demonstrates the rollback rate effect. If you'll notice column B and C, the taxable property value is the same, and the millage and the annual tax is decreasing. Then on the next slide, this demonstrates the impact of the property values that did change for 24-25. So the change in the taxable value, on average, it increased about 8.46%. And let's see, the tentative millage rate is going from 6.421 down to 6.299. That's a decrease of 1.9%. So the annual taxes on average increased by $120 a year, and the proposed millage rate exceeds the rollback rate by 2.77%. Now, also to close, the next 3 slides is the millage resolution. This is a form that is required to be submitted by the district up to DOE. And so it just mentions it discloses the taxable property value of the $78.6 billion for Manatee County, and it separately lists every resolution, in this resolution, every millage that's going to be voted on tonight. And this is basically information for the community and the board. So we see it separately for all of the school district tax, and you've got the discretionary, and you've got the additional mill, and also the 1.5 mill, the capital mill. Now, I was going to direct you to the handout that we had passed out today. This was some information that was requested. Here, what I wanted to highlight, in the general revenue presentation that we had in June, I had this type of information on 2 of the slides. So, yes, just the single page one. I'm including this now just as an update to where that was, because remember that was as of May. So I wanted to give you some more updated information where it was at this point. So remember, we have some programs that are required to be fulfilled even though they are within the base FEFP funding. There's a portion that does come out for the Family Empowerment Scholarship. While it's included in our base funding, that doesn't actually come to the district. There is inside of that base funding as well is the proportionate share for the charter schools. So we want to point that out to everyone. There's also the instructional materials. There's a reading allocation. There's the classroom teacher salary and other professionals increase, which also includes the charter schools' proportionate share for those as well. The teacher classroom supplies, and amounts that go to the programs of AP, ACE, CAPE, IB, and dual enrollment. And then also listed are the categorical programs that we're mandated to fund as well too. But in this particular category, we have some programs where our costs exceed the allocation that DOE provides. So out of this group of categories, I'll highlight student transportation. While we were allocated essentially $9.1 million, the district's budgeted cost for 24-25 is $21 million. Another one to highlight is the ESC guaranteed allocation. While we are allocated, the district is allocated $22.6 million, our budgeted cost is essentially $46 million. And one more to highlight is the third one is Safe Schools. We are allocated $5.2 million, and the district's budgeted cost this year is $9.5 million. So I wanted to disclose this information as well too. So I'm open for any questions.
I don't,
I have a few, but,
go ahead.
okay. First of all, thank you for putting everything together. I know it takes a lot of work to do a budget this big. first question is probably for the board. I don't understand why we do our meetings at 5:05 PM. I know the statute, I understand it has to be after 5, but I don't see why we're not doing it like at 5:30 to allow little time for those who work to get here and to be able to participate. We've done this last year, and this is the second time that we've done this 5:05 PM. However convenient for the staff and directors who are here, thank you ladies, but it's not very convenient for those who work. So I would like the board to entertain a concept of having this final hearing at 5:30.
Are you talking about every meeting at 5 that we
No,
have?
no, 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 I'm saying this one in particular at 5:30.
Okay. I mean, I was wondering about for next
And
year.
moving forward even, maybe after the November, I would even entertain doing all of our evening meetings at 5:30. And I understand that it may be a little inconvenient for staff, but it's 30 minutes. And some of our 5 o'clock meetings, we have buzzed through them pretty good because of the briefing and the board's due diligence in getting a lot of their questions answered. So that is something I'd like this board to consider in moving this September 10th, 2024 to 5:05. I don't know if we've advertised it at 5:05. I think we have time that we could probably adjust that to 5:30 instead. So that's one. And that's for the board, in my opinion, to determine.
Bless you.
Okay. On slide number 10, millage rate, column B to E. So we're actually just looking B going from top to bottom every category, correct?
Correct.
But if I went across, it looks like our rates, yeah, that doesn't, the math doesn't say. So I just wanted to point that out for everyone that's watching, that we're looking at columns A down, B from top to bottom, C to top to bottom. So I just wanted to point that out. When you said the rate of how much we're collecting, on slide number 6, I'm sorry, I'm backing up now. The total millage at the top, that 78.7, that's what we're projected to bring in, correct?
No, that's the
That's the-
property value.
Property value, okay, right, I'm sorry. The property value from year over year. So if you looked at 23-24, we were at 72.2. We are now at 78.7.
Correct.
So I really wanted to point that out to whomever, that you can see our rate is lower, but your property value is higher, which in turns increases your property taxes. And this is our portion, this doesn't, does this also the county's?
This is only the.
Only the school part, right. So the county is a whole nother beast of what they do and what they actually put on their deck. Okay. I'll let others go because I had some questions also on the budget, but go ahead.
I don't
Oh,
have any other board members, but
Okay.
never mind, sorry.
Yeah. so, that's why they didn't give this to me, so I wouldn't ask questions, Anyway.
Strategic.
Yeah, but I did go through the budget book ahead of time, and I just want to point out on page 16, the last paragraph, it says that FEFP comes from 2 primary sources, state sales tax, and I think that's incorrect.
That
So,
would be a typo.
yeah, so, fix that for next year.
Okay.
Yeah. And page 19, the FEFP calculation, the second calculation. We're going back now to getting prorations, is that correct? Or you just, because prorations really hurt us, all the districts a few years ago, where the state said, oh, we're short, and sorry about that, you're not getting all of your FEFP, you know, and here's how much you guys owe, write us a check. Is this back to a write us a check scenario?
Well, they, starting around in December, they then submit they distribute. It's not really a check, it's you know.
You know what I mean.
Exactly. It starts around in November that they start sending for the 24-25 distribution to us, and it happens by month, which is one reason why we end up having to bring to the board a tax anticipation note, because so many costs need to be floated by the district first before we actually get the year's revenue funding.
So the state is estimating that we're going to have to give back part of the base student allocation of $5,000 per student, is that correct? I mean, why do we have a negative there?
That's what they, in the second count, that's what they have,
If you can come
I can't hear her.
in. Sorry. Next time we'll put mics down there.
Oh,
it's okay.
right, this was an adjustment that was added during the second calc. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So they have assessed the proration in the second calculation back to Manatee County.
We didn't have proration the past 2 years, did we?
I don't think
Not
we had
last
it
year.
last year.
We did not have
No.
it last year.
Yeah. I think we might have had it the year before. I can double check that, though.
It's back, huh? Funny how it's never extra money, so,
I
yeah.
apologize, I couldn't find the box when you were saying it, so
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. That's disconcerting. And then, on page 20, the general fund, state sources of revenue, it's got the FEFP, and then the lottery allocations and school recognition has gone to 0.
That is because we don't have those amounts at this time. If we have them before the final, we will get them in here. It's almost the same like when we flip over to the special revenue, where we have 0 on some of those columns. So the award hasn't come in, and if it doesn't come in before the final, we probably won't have anything in there at that point in time unless we reach out and get some estimates at that point in time. But when we were preparing this, that information wasn't available or awarded, so we didn't record it here.
But we haven't heard anything saying
No.
it's going away. You're not
And the
getting-
school recognition came very late in the second semester. So, I mean, in this respect, the actual financial statements will reflect those for sure, but many times you don't know if you're going to get that award when the budget is being prepared.
Okay. And under local sources, the district school tax, the actual in 22-23 was 290 million, and it has gone down in the budget for the following 2 years.
So remember too, on the actuals, it will also include if there had been revenues that were collected during that year that might have been even for other fiscal years. Yes, you may.
How many years have you been doing this, Gina?
A few. So we're going to actually make a change in the final budget book, but Florida Red Book made a change this year where the voted millage piece is broken out, and prior to that, it wasn't. So now they have 2 separate accounting codes. So you're seeing in 22-23, the voted millage is rolled up into that 290. In the other years, it's broken out. So for the final budget book, just for consistency, we're gonna break it out.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I don't ask that question again, okay. That's great. And That's what I had, and I really appreciate your graphs in the slide deck. They're well done and well thought out, and really illustrates what's going on in public education. Oh, and one more thing, which I found just kind of shocking, is the increase in students. Because our neighbors to the south are anticipating a decrease, and we are anticipating enough to fill another high school, I think. What page was that on? It was,
It's early.
On,
Um,
on 19.
yeah, it's on 8.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah, that last year for the fourth calculation, we had 2,511 students come in, additional, and we're anticipating 1,829 this year, is that correct?
Yes.
Whew. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Bray?
Okay. I didn't know we were gonna go through the book, but since we can, I will. Page 7 of the book. The beginning fund balance of 101,916. I'm not gonna read it all. And you add in all the other buckets of money. We're gonna have a beginning balance of 468,958, 793. Is that correct?
Yes, of all funds.
How much of that is already spent? Kind of
Spoken for.
spoken for.
It's still July. So,
Right.
But anyhow, well, we have, the expenditures are actually, are listed a little, we didn't summarize those here at this point in time. I think our final will be a little bit clearer
Okay,
than that. So we'll be presenting that as it goes forward.
okay. And I too did note that we are getting a growth rate, and I talked to you about that yesterday, 3.35% in students. And then we already talked about the rate. The page 13 of the budget has all the pie charts, has a pie chart, and then a graph below. The additional voted millage is 16% of our budget, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
of the millages budget.
right, of the voted millage, the additional 1 mil, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, on page 14, I just want to make note too, that if you look at that page and go all the way over to the far right column at the bottom, again, the values that we have increased in 1 year. Our values went up 6 billion, if I get that right, 6,484,700, or $78,340. That's a huge, and the more they build, I foresee that going up year over year. So people, and those houses aren't gonna be cheap, so it's gonna continue to raise our taxes. It's not necessarily what we're doing, it's what property values are doing, more than anything, and I wanna make that clear as well. All right, and then on, I think I talked to you yesterday, because I have the same negative number that Ms. Foreman just discussed on page 19. On 20, local sources, the second line, additional school tax, that is the voted millage, correct?
Yes, and that's what Gina had just discussed.
Okay.
So that's the additional 1 mil, but it's being required to be pulled out and reported separately now.
So it will be, how is that gonna be reported separately in our book? Just
On a separate line.
a separate line?
It's a separate line. So you'll see, while you see the school tax, they will separate out that additional tax. So it won't be
Okay, this is
included
the
in
one,
the-
I think I touched on this yesterday to make, to the language on the referendum. It's a referendum, right? Is that correct? That's what that line represents, the referendum?
Yes, I believe in many of the state books, they call it additional voted.
Okay.
There's some non-voted, so that's why we were.
That's why
going
we're
with-
pulling it, because most other districts list it that way, is that?
Well, it's listed in the red book, oh, sorry, it's the red book, it's like the accounting book for the state, chart of
Right,
accounts, that
right.
kind of a thing. They have specific names that's used, and they use this one, they call it additional.
Okay. That's-
So we've been trying to incorporate in our presentations, because we used to always say the referendum, we've been trying to add that extra wording in for additional so that we could start incorporating that into
Okay.
the dialogue.
And then down below that, bus fees and activity fees. I was just, it's a small number, but minus 31.22%. What are the bus fees? What is that income? Don't know? Okay, that's fine. And activity bus,
I would assume at this point in time, it would be oh,
She's got the answers.
okay, Gina's got the.
you got it? Come on out. I mean, the bus fee and the activity bus fee, so the difference between those two definitions, because they almost cancel each other out if you look at it.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on the definitions and specifically what they're used for. But if you notice in 22, 23 actual, they're zeroed out, because you're billing back the schools for the service of the buses within their programs. And then at the end of the year, there's an accounting entry done that just closes it out, offsets that money taken in against the cost of the
So
transportation
this is,
department.
as we talked about with this, transportation for students to and from school, not, that would be the bus fee. The activity bus fee would be actually a different, just like it says, activity.
Yeah.
A sport or whatever that school might be doing.
An extracurricular, I'd really have to get you the definition.
Okay.
Separation of those two.
Okay.
But the bus fees could be the charter schools, because we have some charter schools that pay us.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
that is
Oh, that's
correct.
true.
Yes.
okay, all right, that's a good thing. Page 21, unassigned fund balance. Beginning balance fund down to unassigned balance fund is 73,186,463 with a total of 101. That ends up being our beginning, am I correct in that? Our beginning balance fund's 101, minus the change would be 15 from 23 to 24. So we're changing from 23-24 to 24-25. It's a difference of 15,954,000. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Yes.
And, okay. Sorry, folks. And I talked to you in depth about page 36 yesterday, because there was a lot of differences in 100% negative, 100% negatives. But again, I think that's, we're waiting for those funds to come in before you can report it on the final. And some of this that I'm saying is, people want to know this kind of stuff. If they go back and watch this, then they'll see that we tried to explain it as best we could without you having to dive into the binder by yourself. Like I think a lot of us have done here. I think that is about all I had. Okay, there's the 101. So if we looked at the purpose millage levy, the page 45 of the binder, there's your 101,916. So that would be the carry forward thing. The net fund balance. Fund balance, net positions. Okay. That's it.
Ms. Messenger?
Just a couple things.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that it's tentative. That's the whole point of the word tentative, is it's going to be preliminary. In the 8 years I've been here, this always lacks a lot of detail because you're closing things out. There's a lot of things that are up in the air. Like the school recognition funds. I remember asking that question before because I was like, why is it like that? That's something to remember. Is it's preliminary, it's tentative, there's a lot more detail that comes when we get the final budget book in September that we don't have right now. This is just a best guess from what you know right now, which is going to continue to change.
Educated.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I don't want to say it's not an educated guess. It's an absolutely educated guess, but that's what it is at the moment because we're not going to really get there until September, and that's when you really get the full binder with that level of detail that I think I enjoy reading, but I think everyone probably enjoys reading, like that level of detail. It's just not here yet because that's just not where we're at. I just want to come back to, because I want to make sure it's clear, since this presentation is on the website, I just want to make sure it's clear. On page 13 of the budget book, the pie chart that was referenced about the millage, the additional voted millage is 16% of the revenue of all of the millages, not 16% of the budget or 16% of all total revenue the district takes in. It's only 16% of the millages collected.
Correct. It doesn't include anything related to the FEFP funding or any other sources, grant sources that this district gets, or capital funds that we receive.
Exactly. I just want to make sure that's made very clear because I just want to make sure that's very clear. And the final thing that I want to talk about is that the advertisement for this meeting was approved by this board. So that discussion could have been had at the July 23rd meeting when this board approved this. It said in the advertisement that we approved, that's not on anyone else, we approved 505. That's what we approved sitting here. So that was a discussion we could have had that day. We used to have every meeting at 5:45. I'm not going to be here in November when you guys vote on your next year's calendar, but that's something you can put on that if that's something you want to do. And if the chair wants to hold a meeting at a different time in September, once again, that's an advertisement that's going to come before the board, and that's on the board to decide and to vote on. I just want to make sure that that's clear. That's not on anyone else but the board that voted on it. Finally, really the big thing I want to say is I want to say thank you, because I know you guys have been working tirelessly. You haven't had weekends. You're living off of coffee. Maybe I would live off of Slurpees, Mountain Dew Slurpees, but whatever. Coffee, lots of sugar, no judgment. But I just want to say thank you because I know how much work this is. I know what a tight turnaround it is because you're getting information and then you have to act very quickly. I know it's not easy, and so I just want to say thank you.
Not to mention the flood. The flood.
Yes.
Yeah, the flood.
That didn't make it any easier.
Both finance and budget are not in this building right now, so it does make it difficult.
Mr. Tatum?
Hello, Ms. Sellers and staff. You guys have done a great job on this. I know you were here on nights and weekends making sure this is all ready to go, so we do appreciate it, right? We do appreciate it. So maybe please go to slide number 6. And that's up. So I would like to just walk us through a little bit on this slide here if we could. If we can start over on the second column from the left where it says 2018-2019. If you go up to the top of that column, you'll see a number right above a blue line. That's 7.331. And what that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Sellers, but that is the total millage That is the millage rate, your total school board millage rate that was collected in that school year 18-19. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. So if you follow that blue line all the way down to where it ends, you'll see it ends in a number 6.299. That is the total school millage that will be charged in the year 24-25. Is that correct?
That'll be assessed.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to point out that number one, that is a decrease of about 1.3 mils, right? 1.3 mils. And if you do the math on that, it actually is about a 15% decrease in the tax rate from 2018-19 over to 2024-25. And actually the millage that was voted in 2018 has now more than actually gone away, because we've lost more than one. When I say lost, I mean the total rate that is charged has actually gone down by more than a mil, right? It's actually gone down by 1.33 mils. So I'm just pointing that out to people, that each year the tax rate has been going down somewhere around 2.5% or so. And we don't have any control over property values going up, but the state, so to speak, and your government and your elected officials are trying to balance this all out with rising home prices and property values, and still maintaining what the Florida Constitution says we have to do, which is a safe, secure, high-quality school system. So I'm just pointing that out, that the tax rates have been going down every year. They're going down again this year, the total millage rate. It is decreasing again by about another 2%. And like I said, we don't have control over property values, but tax rates are going down. And we've actually lost more than the mill that was voted in 2018, 2019. So that's what I wanted to point out. I think it's instructive and educational for the public to see that as they consider what they would like to do with their votes in November, regarding millages and things like that. So that's all I have to say about that. I just wanted to make that a little educational point for the public, because I think it's important to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the most important slides. I don't see anybody else lit to speak, so thank you very much again for all your work. I know it's not easy, so really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we're going to move to our next presentation for the evening, which is the 23-24 Florida Department of Education School and District Accountability presentation, and that is you, Mr. Jensen.
Hello. Good evening, Churchill, board members, Superintendent Wysong. Awesome. So, last week, Florida Department of Education released the final school and district grades for the school year. And so I wanted to, hot off the press, be here tonight with you to kind of share all the data that the state released, as well as kind of the implications for Manatee. And the first slide is I've been updating you throughout the year, all the way from August to May, has always been this, which is just kind of a summary of what that major assessment our students taking is, and that's the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking. There's kind of their 3rd through 10th grade version, which we call FAST, and the students take that in ELA and mathematics. And then there's also a K through 2 version delivered through the Renaissance STAR platform, STAR Early Literacy, STAR Reading, and STAR Math, and that gives us important data, on those students before they enter 3rd grade, which really, the accountability formula for schools in the district starts in 3rd grade. And as you know, this has been a very busy year in state assessment, because this is the 2nd year of the implementation of those FAST assessments. And so last year was really a baseline year for the state. And then with the data this year, they were able to start creating all of the formulas and scales, et cetera. So if we go way back to August, we started our Progress Monitor 1 testing in August and September. And that would be in reading and math. And what makes FAST unique is it is a 3-test sequence. Students take a test in the beginning of the year, and then in the middle of the year, and then at the end of the year. And the test at the end of the year is the one that factors into the school and district accountability results. PM1 and PM2 are really used for our instructional decision-making and progress monitoring along the way. After that PM1 testing in October, the state board met and adopted a rule on standard setting, which basically was taking all of the results from the prior year and then kind of identifying the different scale cut scores by which, like, what made a level 1 and what made a level 2 a level 2, etc. And so they went through that process, adopted a rule, and then eventually in December the state released the retrofitted results, which we talked about in, I believe, the December and January board meetings. And those retrofitted results basically looked back at the data from the year before and said, well, here's the new scale for that data, and here's how everything lines up. And so students weren't negatively impacted by that. They kind of were held harmless by it, but it showed us what the new scale scores for all those different level cutoffs were going to be. Meanwhile, students were beginning their Progress Monitor 2 testing this year. That was happening in December and January. And then on the heels of those retrofitted results in December, the state released the 22-23 informational school grades. And so they had the kind of the scale scores identified. They retrofitted the results from the previous year, and they were able to use those to create the school grades from the prior year. However, the school grades were still on kind of a prior, when they released the school grades, they kind of adjusted the scales for the school grades so that, you know, they had the same number of A schools and B schools and C schools and D schools as they had in prior years, because they really didn't have a strong benchmark for them yet.
They graded on the curve.
Yeah, a little bit. And so after that, there was a little bit of a lull. We finished our Progress Monitor 2 testing, and we started our final Progress Monitor PM3 in May, as you know. And then we got the results instantly from that. One of the great advantages of that assessment is that we, teachers and students and administrators all get the results instantaneously or almost instantaneously. And we were able to start doing some analysis and preparation for the upcoming school year based on those informal results we received. Then in July, the state board adopted the identified rule you see there, which amended the rule and created new cut scores. And so these were the cut scores that were going to be used for school and district grade calculations. And so now they had the scale scores, they had everything kind of set up for the assessment, and 2 years of data now, so they can calculate learning gains. They were able to kind of create the new grading cut scores for schools and districts and implement learning gains in the full grade formula. So this is the first year of the full grade formula, and that same day, actually just, I think while the meeting was still going on, the state released the 23-24 school and district grades. And as a reminder, these are all the components that factor into those grades. You have the blue categories, which are your reading ones, and your light orange ones, which are your math. So you have third grade reading achievement, which is the first year that this has been part of the school grade calculation. You have your achievement for both reading and math, learning gains for all students in reading and math, and then your learning gains of the lowest quartile in both reading and math, and all of those are calculated from the FAST assessments or algebra, geometry, etc. There's also a science achievement category for either the 5th, 8th, or biology science assessment, a social studies achievement category for civics or U.S. history, middle school acceleration, which captures how many students are accelerating in middle school in math or through industry certifications. You have graduation rate, and you have your college and career acceleration in high school. And you can see at the bottom different schools, different categories of these school grade components hit different school types. So in elementary, you have 8 different categories, in middle 9, high school you have 10 categories, and our combination schools like our K-8s have 10 different categories as well. So that's kind of the denominator when factoring their school grade. You get up to 100 points in each one of these categories, and then the total number of points is your denominator. So when the state amended that rule, it articulated what the new grading scales were going to be for both schools and school districts. This is the elementary school grading scale, and you can see that it's the same as the prior grading scale. So on the left is the old one, on the right is the new one. It's the same exact cutoffs per grade band. So this is the scale that we were familiar with. What the state rule change did do was change the grading scale for middle schools, for high schools, and for combination schools, which are schools like your K-8s. And so at each grade band, the score range went up anywhere from 2 to 3 percentage points. And so you can see that shift where a 62 used to be an A, now a 64 or up is an A. The delineator from between a kind of a B and up was 54%, now it's 57%. And so all of those bands raised up 2 to 3 percentage points. With those new scales, the state released the final school data and the final school ratings, and this is the far right column on this is all the schools in Manatee County. And I provided this large table so you can see kind of the history of schools by letter grade all in the district. And I think the thing that stands out, first of all, and is a testament to all of the work that our teachers did this year, our students did this year, and our school leaders did this year, and all of our support staff is obviously looking all the way back more than 10 years to 2012, 2013. We've never had this many A-rated schools in the school district of Manatee County. And so I think that's something for our school leaders and our teachers and all staff to be very proud of. You can also see the number of B schools, C schools, and D schools, and we'll kind of talk about that later in the presentation. I also provided a slide that breaks out the number of schools by letter grade, district-run schools, as well as our charter schools, as well as historical data for both of those groups. And I think, again, looking at that top chart on the top right column, you'll see, again, more A schools, more A district-run schools than at any point in our history going all the way back to 2012. So some of the, I think, biggest celebrations, there's a lot to celebrate, but I couldn't fit it all on one slide, so I think these are some of our biggest. Again, largest number of A schools. We had 2 Title I elementary schools reach an A grade this year, Able Elementary and Tillman Elementary. I mean, that is truly an exceptional accomplishment and a testament to the work of those faculties. Really just incredible work and well-deserved at both of those school sites. Parish Community High School earned an A grade as well. Ballard Elementary improved from a D the previous year under the informational grades all the way up to a B, which is absolutely wonderful. And both Manatee and Oneiko Elementaries exited their school turnaround status and improved their letter grades. Again, really wonderful work by all of our schools. In the same rule amendment that changed the school score grading scales, it changed the district grading scale as well. And so you can see the prior one on the left, again, where the top, an A-rated score was 62 and above, and you can see the range for B, et cetera. On the new scale, they made it match the secondary school scale, so they moved it up to a 64 and up for an A. And this is a kind of that same chart I showed you from the beginning of the presentation, but with all of our components calculated and then our total district grade. So you can see in the aggregate, we received a 62% from the state, which and under this grading scale is a high B. And for each category, I put the change from the prior year. And so you can see third grade reading is at 54%, and we went up 4% from the prior year. Reading achievement up 5%, math achievement up 2%, science achievement up 2% from the prior year, social studies up 5% from the prior year, up 1 in middle school acceleration, up 2 in graduation rate, and 6-point increase in college and career acceleration. You don't have that prior year comparison under the learning gains because we didn't have learning gains in the prior year. And just like we did with the school grade history, I put together a district grade history here for you as well, going all the way back to 14-15, because I couldn't fit more on the slide. But I'm just kind of walk you through our current year. So 23-24, that column almost all the way to the right. The column all the way to the right, I put versus 21-22, not the prior year, because 21-22 was the last year we had learning gains. And so I thought that was also a helpful point of comparison if you were looking at this data. And so you can see, first of all, from that prior year, up 3 total points, as well as there's no comparisons for third grade reading in this because third grade reading has never been factored into the district letter grade before. But going back year over year on this chart, 54 is definitely the highest we've had in many years here in Manatee County. We also have our highest ELA proficiency, tied with 2018-2019. So you can see that dip we had kind of, that a lot of people attribute to that pandemic learning, that loss of learning, the stoppage of learning, students not being in school full time. So you can see we've reached that level of proficiency and ELA achievement we had before. We have our highest in ELA learning gains, the highest scores in ELA lower quartile learning gains anywhere by far. You see 13 points higher than in 21-22. I believe our second highest in math. And we're not quite where we were right before the, pandemic interrupted learning there, but you can see we're very close. Same for learning gains, and again, we've returned in our lower quartile learning gains. So again, strong performance in math. Highest performance in science, going all the way back 10 years. Again, kind of rebounding from social studies achievement. A significant improvement over last year, but we're still catching up to where we were before. And again, highest middle school acceleration, highest college and career acceleration, and an increasing graduation rate over last year, but again, still plenty of work to do on graduation rate.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes, sir.
Explain to me again why under the third grade, in the third grade reading row, there's no comparison because we didn't do that testing in previous years, or?
We did do that testing in previous years, but it was never factored into the district grade. And so it was, in prior years, it was just the 3 ELA buckets there, and this is the first year of adding that fourth one, which is third grade reading. I can send you the historical data on third grade reading if you'd like to see it.
If you would, thank you.
This is a little bit of that historical context for third grade reading, going back 2 years. So you can see, again, we've had increases in third grade reading proficiency. We're at 54 now, up from 50, and before that it was at 47. So in 2 years, we've gained 7 proficiency points in third grade reading. We've also increased all School District of Manatee County achievement categories from 23 to 24, just like I said. So all of those achievement categories have increased over last year. Again, testament to the work of our teachers, administrators, a lot of hard work going on in our schools, and a lot of student-focused instruction. And again, just kind of drilling a little bit more into third grade reading proficiency, you see the 3 historical years there. And just to kind of give it some context, the range for third grade reading in districts across the state ranges all the way from the lowest at 38% to the highest achieving district at 76% in third grade reading. Most of the districts fall within the 50s and the 60s. You find most of your districts that are in the upper 60s or in those low 70s, they may not look similar to Manatee County and some of the families that they serve, students from different languages, students of poverty, et cetera. And so, one of the things we're looking at is, what are districts doing to move the needle forward? And more importantly, what are districts like us doing who are successful in moving the needle forward, and what lessons can we learn from them? Yes, ma'am.
Do we have the third grade reading scores broken out between district and charter schools?
I can provide that information for you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I would like to see that, but do you have an idea or an indication of, we're rejoicing 7% increase. How do the charter schools do compared to that?
I wouldn't want to opine on it
without
having the data in front of me, but I can absolutely get the spreadsheet and send it over to you.
I think we should get that. So
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Another question, Mr. Jensen, we're still on slide 14, right? So those numbers that we see there on the top left, 47, 50, and 54. I'm trying to ask my question succinctly. So when a grade is calculated for a school, if there's an English language learner, their score is not included to calculate the school grade until they've been in the school system for 2 years. Is that right?
I'm gonna, yes, in a way, and
Okay.
I'm gonna try to say this in a way that Evan McCarthy would approve of.
Okay.
If they're, in their first 2 years, kind of with language acquisition, their achievement category won't count for the school district. So whether or not they're proficient, right, because it's kind of unfair to say you should be proficient in English in your first year potentially in the country. But their learning gains will start counting during that time. And so you can make a learning gain because theoretically you should be improving your learning, but that those first 2 years, the proficiency category isn't counted for those students.
For the school grade. For the school grade.
Correct.
But they are counted, the ELL learners are included in these numbers, right? 47, 50, and 54.
These are calculated based on kind of the school grade percentages. I have other spreadsheets that just show you the raw data, which would capture those students, yes.
Okay, but I guess my question is, like, let's look 23, 24. The total number of third graders that are reading at grade level, that number 54% includes English language learners in the 2-year window, or does not include language learners in the 2-year window?
It should not include English language.
Did not include, right, okay. Okay, great, that's what I wanted to know, thank you.
So in addition to, the increase in A schools, we have a lot of successes, schools improving their school grade. We did have 4 Manatee schools that received a D grade for 23-24, which is a decrease from the year before. Samoset Elementary, Lincoln Middle, Bayshore High, and Manatee School of Arts and Sciences. And in the next couple slides, we'll talk about some of the instructional responses with these schools. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. We want to move the whole district forward. We want all of our schools to have the support they need to be successful, and I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. I also wanted to share that combination schools were affected most by the fast school grading scale changes. And so again, your combination schools are things like your K-8 schools. We saw most of the schools, kind of when we got the spreadsheets, that would have been a B or would have been an A or, or would have been a C that had that didn't quite meet that threshold if they hadn't changed the score essentially, were combination schools. And so because of how many school grade components they have all the way from 3rd grade all the way to 8th grade or beyond potentially, there's a lot of factors that can affect those schools and kind of their percentage of points earned. And so we saw in our data that a lot of combination schools were affected by the grading scale changes when it came to the grade that they were assigned. Additionally, one of the things we're going to keep our eye on with the combination schools in general and with all of our schools is there's now an escalator clause in Florida statute, which basically says if any year, any type of school, 75% or more of those schools in the state get an A or a B grade, the state is going to raise the grading scale for that type of school up to the next round number, either 5 or 0. And so essentially, if a lot of the schools in the state are performing well in a certain type, whether it's high, middle, elementary combination, they'll raise the grading scale to make it more difficult, more challenging, so they have to, work harder to maintain that same school grade. Combination schools are an interesting group because you have a lot of varied combination schools across the state. You have some combination schools that serve, really low-income communities, for instance, but you have some, and a lot of combination schools around the state, which are highly affluent or high-performing schools. And so that's an area we're looking at to make sure that, we're monitoring well to make sure none of our schools are, get into a bind with their school grade calculations.
Are we able to take our numbers, it doesn't count for anything, but take our numbers and say, this is a Palm View A and Palm View B, A being the elementary and B being the secondary portion, and then compare that with our elementary and our secondaries?
we have the data to do that. It's something,
It's not something you're interested in, or,
it's something we look at. So we certainly, when all the school data comes in, we're all scraping through it category by category, student by student even, to look at what do we need to be building towards for the next year. I mean, all of our school administrators have spent their summers mapping out what they're going to do to improve for the next year. And so, I mean, at a school like Palmview, where you're getting elementary grade components, you're getting middle school grade components, they really are looking at, okay, here's where we did exceptionally well, but here's where we didn't do well, and it, happened to be in elementary school learning gains for ELA, let's say, and that's where we're going to focus our some of our attention in the upcoming year and rebuild some structures in order to make sure we don't have that same issue again. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going on in response to supporting these schools, but just as a summary of some of those things, we've already had one-on-one and small group principal meetings with the superintendent around learning gains. So all of our principals in the district came in, met with their supervising executive director, me, Mr. McCarthy, Superintendent Weissong, and went over all their learning gains data. And Mr. McCarthy actually put together an entirely new package of data visualizations for them so they could really drill into individual students and individual groups that weren't making progress at their school that they can support better, for instance. So like our students who used to be level 1s but now are level 2 students, they didn't make as much progress as we hoped they made this year. So what's some of the common factors between those students and what could we be doing better? So we did that. We looked at, we had one-on-one meetings with every high school principal around graduation rate and supporting the graduation rate work in their schools. And we also met one-on-one with all of our principals at schools performing below expectations, and we're continuing that work too. We also, in my weekly instructional services direct reports meetings starting here in August, we'll be having weekly data review meetings tracking school data, assessment data, but also implementation data. How are we implementing our instructional programs, monitoring the progress of our students, making sure we're using our programs with fidelity in the district, et cetera. Like I said, Mr. McCarthy's put together a number of new data visualizations and approaches for our principals that we've rolled out throughout the summer to them and will continue to roll out. And as well, we're also on next week's board agenda going to be bringing you a contract related to MTSS and an early warning system that we will begin implementing across schools to better identify problems before they begin and better monitor interventions with students throughout the course of the school year. As you know, Ms. Kathia Johnson was hired in January to be our Executive Director of School Improvement and Leadership Development. She's really interfacing with the Bureau of School Improvement around our school improvement work in the district, as well as directly supporting some of our schools that need the most administrative support. We also have a modified school support and walkthrough schedule where the curriculum leaders, our executive directors, are walking these campuses regularly with school leaders to see learning in action and help brainstorm collaboratively around what we can do to support learning at these schools. And then obviously, or not obviously, but finally, we will be doing master schedule reviews in August 2024. So I want to take a look at all of our schools' master schedules and make sure that we're best positioning our resources for student learning, and we're best using our instructional staff and instructional resources. So on the agenda tonight, there is an item to authorize the superintendent with some of the flexibility granted in Florida Statute 1001.42. This is another response we can take in reaction to some of our underperforming schools who earned a grade of D. And essentially the statute says that to free schools from some of the restrictions that limit their ability to implement programs and strategies needed to improve student performance, a school board may adopt salary incentives or other strategies that address the selection, placement, compensation, and expectations of instructional personnel. And because we're so close to the start of the school year, I know Dr. Weissong and I felt a sense of extreme urgency and bringing this item to you this evening so that with that authorization, we could make sure we collaboratively work with these principals and these schools to ensure they have the best possible conditions on their campuses for learning and for school improvement so that they can take the strides necessary in the upcoming 24-25 school year to improve their school grades and you know, do what's in the best interest of all their students. So we're you know, doing a lot of different things to support these schools already, and will be doing them over the course of the school year. But this is another important tool, I think, in our toolkit that we can use to ensure that our schools have the resources they need to be successful. And with that, I open up to any questions you may have.
Sure. Thank you for putting this all together, and
My pleasure.
team back there, of course. And it really goes, I mean, the data, page 11, kind of, to me, is kind of the drop the, I mean, at every single place we've risen, and of course, if grades weren't changed, you know what I mean? From the 62 to 64, it'd be a little bit different, possibly for the district, but hey, that is what it is. And I just, to me, what the district has been doing, especially I think early learning, is now we're seeing some of those gains, seeing what's happening, what we did. And I know that as a board, that's one of our major priorities to continue. But I think also it goes back to obviously every teacher that we have in the classroom and the amazing work that they're doing. And not only that, but I truly do believe, because of the power of our community saying, yes, we do want the extra millage, and yes, we want to pay our teachers really well, and we're one of the best salaries in the area, in the state, I think we're getting high quality teachers, and this only shows it. Hopefully that continues for the time being, forever, because you know, our teachers are the ones who we can sit up here and do whatever we want to do, but our teachers are the ones that are the boots on the ground and actually doing the work. And if you don't have the best, results may not be the best, but when you have the best, results are great. So that's what looking at those, I think we're on the right path, and thank you to the superintendent and to your staff and everybody. You know, we're on that path, and hopefully we can continue to be on that path.
I have a few questions
yep, Ms.
for
Wright.
you. I wanted to wait till you were done, because I'm like, okay, page 4, that one stands out to me probably. When we're talking about how we're scored, and it's just not the actual, just the student taking the test that day. There are other factors that go into what our score ends up being. And if you look at the far right purple squares, those two are key into what our scores are, meaning the college and career acceleration programs. I don't think a lot of people understand that when you see a score at one of our schools being I don't want to say a bad number, at a 53%, that doesn't mean like your test score was a 53, and that's not a good test score. It combines, and that was probably one of the biggest learning things for me. I know I knew it, but when you start really working it, you see it a little clearer. So I wanted to point that out first of all, and then on slide, oh no, it's not on a slide. It's a while back I asked for the charts that had P1, P2, P3 compared by school, and that had the level 1 through 5 on it by school. Am I right? And if I remember that chart, I have to go back in my piles and see. When can we get that? I know I asked for it for a while, but I don't know when we're going to get that.
I'd be happy to share that with you.
Okay, you may have already. I think it was a big pivot table that you gave me, but what I got before was just a printout of every school, and it showed the levels, and it was easy to read what school was where. Because if you look at this and you said that on slide, which one? Like on slide 9, I'm sorry, Abel and Tillman acquired an A. Congratulations. I've been to Tillman, high energy principal there. I'm telling you what, I cannot keep up with her. She's great. And then Ballard. I think Ballard, in my heart, is one of the biggest success stories. I toured that school the first time right after I was elected, and then again. I think I've been there like 3 times. And that's another very engaged school. So I wanted to just point those 2 schools out to congratulate them for the work that they do. Because especially Ballard. The other, we gotta get some more engagement there on the ones that did fall a little short, and it's probably because of the scale. But that just goes to being right on the edge of a C to a D, get in that safe zone where you don't fall to the D. Same thing with the D. If it's a high D, I wouldn't be happy about that. I'd be happier with a middle C. So I just wanted to see when we can get that, just a little handout, not a big pivot table spreadsheet, but just a little handout that shows, including the charters. I think it included some of the charters and their grade, A, B, C, D, F. I think it was in that as well. So I would like to have that if we could. I'm sure I referred to it quite a bit throughout the year to see, okay, this school's here. And it would also be reflective of what all these scores are now at year end. Okay, that'd be great if I could see that. Thank you.
Actually, if all of us could.
Miss,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, yeah, because it was a nice little, 2-page sheet to look at. I loved it. Yeah.
Ms. Messiter, you were lit up to speak.
I am, yeah. I will not get into my spiel about the shenanigans of this testing. I won't do that today because you've pointed out how many wonderful highlights there are and how many positive things there are, and I really just want to focus on those. As Chair Cho has said, you brought up the millage, but I really want to point out, like, if you look at when the millage went into place, a number of A schools has only increased. So I really echo what you said, and I just want to make sure that that's really, like, you can see it. And that really goes back to just thanking, I just really want to echo everything he just said, and he probably said it better than me. Thanking the teachers, thanking the principals, thanking all the support staff in the schools, thanking everyone in this room, for moving the district forward and continuing to move the district forward. And I feel like everyone should really be proud of how far we've come. I know I am. And so I really just want to make sure that, that's said here, that really I feel like that needs to be said. And just also to jump off of what Mrs. Spray had said about Ballard, we had gotten data like in the middle of the year, and it was the ELA data, and they were just rocking that data. And I remember running into Mr. Keyser at an event and just saying, he's a rock star. I don't know. So like, I'm just so, I don't like to normally call people out. I won't do it negatively, but positively, like, just awesome job. I just think that was wonderful. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Tatum?
Along with the teachers, since I've done leadership work, I just wanted to compliment the leaders in the room. I've been in enough large organizations, and I know that this kind of improvement, consistent like this, comes from the right kind of leadership. So hopefully you all are leading with the attitude of how can I be helpful instead of I'm here to fix things, And if we come into the leadership role with that kind of attitude, which I sense is the way that these people generally operate, and I've sensed it with you all, how you operate, that makes a big difference. So the teachers appreciate that, and when you see them as human beings and you show up and say, how can I be helpful, they will perform for you if they feel like you see them as human beings instead of objects that needed to be tweaked or fixed or something like that. So, and in my experience, you know, the learning gains and the improvements that we've made come from good leadership. So it starts with you, Dr. Weissong, so it looks like we made a pretty good choice. And then it just goes down from there. And you've hired some good people, so congratulations to all the senior leaders in the room. You're doing something right. Just keep on doing what you're doing, please. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, board, I know we're an hour and 20 in, but we're almost done, so we good to keep rocking. We're about to get into some gavel time here, so, yeah. All right, move to item number 4, which is I'm going to close this portion of the meeting, the public meeting. And my next gavel is going to be opening the public hearing. For the board to hear any public comments regarding the 24-25 tentative millage rates and tentative budget. So anyone in the audience, you don't have to have signed up for public comment. You can come up and make a comment if you wish. No one here responding. So I'm going to close this public hearing now and reconvene the regular meeting and move to item B under number 4 and Superintendent Weissong.
Good evening, Chair Choate, board members. I recommend that the board adopt the 2023-2024 tentative millage rate of 6.299.
Hold it, Mr. Dye.
I believe you misspoke. It's 2024, 2025.
I did misspeak. Thank you, Mr. Dye. 2024-2025 tentative millage rate of 6.299.
So moved.
I'll second.
So you have a motion and a second on the floor. I don't see any board members. I'm trying to redo my Granicus here. I don't see any board members lit up to speak. We've obviously had some time to discuss it with Ms. Sellers presenting. Thank you again. So let's go ahead and vote on the approval of adopting the 2024-2025 tentative millage rate of 6.299. And that passes 5-0. Item C. Dr. Weissong.
Thank you, Chairman. I recommend the board adopt a 2024-2025 total tentative budget in the amount of $1,590,673,809, including a general operating fund of $700,190,991.
So moved.
I'll second.
We hear the number again.
Yeah, can you reread that? Can you restate the budget amount?
The total, everybody's checking me tonight. That's great. I have $1,590,673,809 with a general fund of $700,190,000.
Nope. So we have 763,809.
763 million.
So we've got numbers reversed.
Okay, numbers are.
Let's try again. Thank you. I recommend the board approve a total 2024-2025 tentative budget in the amount of $1,590,763,809, which includes a general operating fund of $700,190,991.
And that was moved and seconded and just restated for the record.
Yep. And you still accept that? Good. So we got a motion and a second. We do have Ms. Sprague lit up to speak.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I just want the public to look at it and, come if you want to speak in September. Sorry.
All right. Nope. No worries. All right. Nobody else is lit up to speak. So let's go ahead and vote on the approval of adopting the 24-25 tentative budget in the amount that the superintendent stated.
That's an easy way out.
That passes 5-0.
Financial advisor over there.
I wasn't going to read it again. Then it's on me. All right, so thank you, board, for those two approvals. So now I'm going to close this public meeting once again. And when I reopen, we're opening to a public hearing for the board to hear any public comments regarding the adoption and amendments of school board policies that we previously have workshopped and also advertised. Anyone out there want to comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close this public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting. And item A underneath, well, I guess it's really E. Dr. Weissong.
Thank you. I recommend approval to adopt new policy and amend school board policies to include the following. Here we go. 1210, 3210, 4210, 1242, 3242, 4242, 1362, 3362, 4362, 2120, 2210, 2271, 5517.01, 7540, 7540.04, 8305, 8330, 8405, 8600, 8600.04, and 8651. And I will just note that the following policies were originally considered but have been withdrawn: 1217, 3217, 4217, 5772, and 7217. Again, those 5 policies were withdrawn.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Obviously, we've workshopped these items, these policies, board members. I don't see anyone lit up to speak. So let's go ahead and vote on the approval to adopt the new policies and amend school board policies. That passes 5-0. Superintendent, the next item.
Thank you, Chairman. I recommend approval to utilize the flexibility established per Florida Statute 1001.42 paren 21 to establish salary, incentives, or other strategies that address the selection, placement, compensation, and expectations of instructional personnel, including executing memorandums of understanding up to $600,000.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. This is obviously presented to us in Mr. Jensen's presentation,
Right.
obviously during the board briefings. Board members, I don't see anyone else lit to comment, to speak. So let's go ahead and vote to authorize the superintendent to utilize the flexibility established per Florida Statute 1001.42. And that is approved 5-0. I'll just say, just as a comment on that, thinking outside the box, right? So thank you for bringing that up, and maybe that's what pushes those schools, right? So great job. I appreciate it.
Chairman, if I can just comment, I appreciate the board providing that authorization so that we can get going on this as quickly as we can. We have already met with the principals of those 3 schools. They're at different levels. They each have unique needs, and this will allow us to address their needs as quickly as we can. Those principals know that they have the support of the entire leadership team. We own the school grades at those schools right alongside them, and we are mutually accountable and collectively responsible for quickly improving the situation. So we are on it.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, the time that we got those scores, or those grades, to when school opens, that was a very short window to try to come up with a plan to help these 3 schools. So I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Thank you. Item number 5, we don't have any public comment. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of those schools, are those all Title I schools?
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Yes.
Would it be possible for Mr. Jensen, for my edification, but also for the public, to just give us an overview of some of the extra, outside of this, what we're doing here, some of the extra resources that are oriented towards Title I schools. So that we're really, you know, we are trying to take those schools, and not only with this effort right here that we just saw about some extra incentives for staff, but there are grants and lots of other things that happen in these schools. So could you just quickly summarize some of that for us?
Absolutely. Thank you,
Sure.
Mr. Tatum. Well, first of all, one of the largest federal entitlements is, like you mentioned, Title I, which is supplemental funding we receive from the federal government to support our schools in lower-income communities. And so our schools who are designated as Title I receive that funding annually and go through a process collaborating with our district federal programs teams and our student services team, curriculum team, and me to kind of allocate that money and use it strategically to accomplish school objectives. We'll also be receiving UNISIG funding to support the instructional work at these 3 schools. That funding hasn't yet arrived, but it will arrive in the coming weeks and months. We've also received, you know, there's always different grants and fund sources. So an example of one that we received that was kind of ESSER affiliated was the Supplemental School Improvement Grant, which again was designed to improve quality teaching and learning at all of our kinds of targeted Bureau of School Improvement schools. So it's we get different streams of funding that we allocate strategically to support the kind of differentiated work that needs to happen on these campuses to support teachers, support students, support families.
I just wanted to make the point that these schools that are struggling in these areas are actually, there is a very significant amount of resources that the school system is using, directing it specifically towards those schools to help them and try and improve their performance.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, great.
And may I point out that's federal money, it's not state. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. Thanks.
And
I'll
for the
also add
community
that,
to- yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, please,
Yeah,
Fish.
and it's a collective effort in these Title I schools. It's not solely on the district. It's a community effort, and it's, you know, the parents and the siblings in the family and everybody involved is what produces high-quality education. We can bring students in day out, and we work with them day in, day out. It's the after school and the weekend that I think that we need to support as well. There's a lot of community organizations that, and I said this at my briefing, the students need to read to the adults, and that's how you get learning gains in reading and everything else. So to Mr. Tatum's point, yeah, they are Title I's, and it's a beltway of those schools. So hopefully, with this effort, we can even get community engagement with parents to come and be involved in their child's education. That's all I want to say. Thank you. Sorry.
And I was just going to add that I think all of us are energized by Abel and Tillman moving up to an A, because that is exhibit one, that with the right leadership and the right faculty and the right student supports, anything is possible. There's a ton of, again, we've all been deep in with the data, and one of the really cool things that emerged is that Abel's low quartile math learning gains hit 92%, which placed it tied for 9th among all schools in the state of Florida at any level, tied for 9th.
That's awesome.
So there are remarkable things happening there and at Tillman and at Ballard, and so that's helped illuminate a path forward, I think, for all of our schools. Very exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
indeed.
Moves us to item number 5, no public comment this evening, which then will move us to adjournment. Thank you to staff. Thank you, everybody, again. And keep up the good work as we get closer here to the new school year. This is all in the past, so next up. And Board members, we will see you again next week on Tuesday. We are adjourned.